exclusive photographs, by far the best yet, are in from the Titanic. For most of this century, that huge passenger liner has been a dead ship.
We're heading into the middle of the Atlantic now because we're going to look at one of the most famous shipwrecks of all time, the focus of all those documentaries and Hollywood movies. But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
The tale of the Titanic is often told in a way that fails to capture its true horror. We've all heard about the iceberg, the sinking, and the lives lost. But the full story of this tragedy goes much deeper than that. In this gripping expose, Joe Rogan reveals shocking revelations that will leave you on the edge of your seat about this doomed vessel. Join us as we investigate this overlooked aspects and reveal 21 surprising facts about the Titanic that will reshape our understanding of this tragic, historic incident. Exposing the Titanic's conspiracy. Uncovering the startling truth. Behind the Titanic's tragic victims, Joe Rogan, known for his captivating discussions on puzzling topics, recently delved into a conspiracy surrounding the infamous sinking of the Titanic, the grandest ship of its time in the early 1900s. During a lively conversation with his guest, Dave Portnoy, the topic of the renowned French astrologer Nostradamus arose. Nostradamus is famous for his supposed predictions of future events. Portnoy introduced Rogan to a book titled Futility, later renamed The Wreck of Titan, which uncannily foretold the Titanic's tragic collision with an iceberg 14 years before it occurred. Wow! What a surprise! Despite Rogan's interest in the book, he remained skeptical, considering icebergs a common hazard of the era. However, controversies surrounding the Titanic's fate persist, leaving many questions unanswered. Though the official count of lives lost stands at 1,514, conflicting sources suggest numbers ranging from 1,419 to 1,635, adding to the mystery. Now, let's delve into the chilling details of the recovery mission and the daunting task of retrieving bodies from the frigid depths of the ocean. Number 1. The quest for lost. The courageous individuals who took on the solemn task faced a daunting challenge, retrieving a staggering 316 to 337 bodies from the depths. Shockingly, only 23% of the deceased were recovered, leaving the rest to rest eternally on the ocean's floor. What's even more astonishing is the lingering mystery of unidentified bodies from the Titanic tragedy. How does one begin to identify those who may have traveled incognito or whose names were lost in the chaos of the disaster? It's a puzzle that has confounded experts for decades. Then, in 2008, a remarkable breakthrough occurred. 96 years after the catastrophe, the body of a 19-month-old baby named Sidney Leslie Goodwin was finally identified. The enduring fascination with the Titanic prompts contemplation about what else remains undiscovered beneath the icy waters. Stay tuned for more incredible discoveries about the Titanic's wreck survival. Number 2. Titanic's unconventional survivors. Amid the chaos, there were also stories of remarkable grace and unusual survival strategies. Take Benjamin Guggenheim, a first-class passenger who faced the sinking ship with unparalleled elegance. Rather than succumb to panic, he chose a dignified farewell for himself. He dressed in his finest attire and calmly enjoyed a cigar as the ship descended. Now that's what we call making a ground exit. Then there's Charles Jockin, the ship's baker, who adopted a rather strange survival tactic. Instead of letting fear consume him, he chose to take alcohol. Surprisingly, this decision may have contributed to his survival, as he was found treading water after 2 hours with minimal health issues. Who would have thought that getting drunk could be a strategy for enduring the frigid waters? The Titanic had its fair share of interesting characters with unique exits from the ship. Some may find these stories strange, but there are those, like Joe Rogan, who find it hard to believe that drinking alcohol could be a good survival tactic. Number 3. The Titanic's unsettling revelations. Even after 100 years, the Titanic still uncovers chilling revelations. An alarming discovery in 2004 showed a photo revealing more than just debris and sand. The image captured a boot and a leather coat, suggesting that human remains may still be trapped inside the ship. However, James Cameron, a filmmaker with extensive experience exploring the Titanic wreck, claims to have never seen human remains during his expeditions. Yet, considering the magnitude of the tragedy and the approximately 1,500 lives lost, is it not possible that some remains still rest within the ship's unexplored areas? Federal officials remain concerned about grave robbers and looters, as many parts of the ship remain unexplored and could potentially house undiscovered remains. This next story highlights an act of compassion, as a wealthy individual prioritizes the lives of others over his own. Number 4. The selfless sacrifice. Among the wealthy first-class passengers was a man whose immense wealth made headlines even during the disaster. John Jacob Astor IV, the richest passenger with a net worth of $87 million, equivalent to $2 billion today, became an unexpected hero as the ship sank. He was accompanied by his young wife, Madeline. Astor's presence had already caused a stir due to their scandalous age gap. But when disaster struck, it was not his wealth or personal life that defined him, but his actions. As the lifeboats were filled, Astor made a remarkable sacrifice. Despite his wealth and status, he prioritized the safety of women and children, ensuring that his pregnant wife Madeline boarded a lifeboat first. However, when he was about to join her, he noticed 2 frightened children in need of help. Without hesitation, he stepped aside and gave up his place in the boat, a true act of heroism. Witnesses described him as a man who faced his fate with dignity and grace. Even in his final moments, he was seen standing alone on the deck, sharing a cigarette with a fellow passenger. Astor's selflessness and bravery left a lasting impression on those who witnessed it. When his body was recovered, it revealed not only his wealth, but also the depth of his character. His pockets held valuables, including a diamond ring and $2,440 in American notes, along with a gold pocket watch that his son cherished. In the end, John Jacob Astor IV's legacy was not defined by his riches, but by his courageous and compassionate act of selflessness. Get ready to have your mind blown, because the truth behind the iceberg that sank the Titanic is even more puzzling than you might have thought. Number 5. The incredible story behind the Titanic's iceberg. This wasn't just any ordinary chunk of ice. It had a dramatic origin story that unfolded 4 years before the Titanic's doomed voyage. Scientists at the University of Sheffield made a jaw-dropping discovery about the iceberg's origins. They found that a period of warm, wet weather had weakened glaciers, making them more likely to break off. And break off they did, creating a massive iceberg that measured a staggering 400 feet long and weighed a mind-boggling 2 megatons. This colossal iceberg had been forming for years, and when it finally collided with the Titanic, disaster struck. The impact crumpled over 100 meters of the ship's hull as if it were made of paper, sealing the fate of the supposedly unsinkable vessel. In the aftermath of the tragedy, many wondered how one iceberg could bring down such a grand ship. Some thought maybe the Titanic's builders had cut corners, but that theory was quickly disproven when pieces of the ship were examined. Further investigation revealed a startling truth. The rivets used in the Titanic's construction contained 3 times more slag than modern standards allow. For those unfamiliar with metallurgy, slag is the residue left behind after smelting. This excess slag made the rivets brittle in cold temperatures, and when the iceberg scraped alongside the ship, it sheared off the rivet heads, causing the hull plates to separate and allowing water to flood in. So it wasn't just about saving money, it was a result of the intense pressure to finish the Titanic and its sister ships on a tight schedule. The majestic Titanic meets its icy end, and chaos reigns among the passengers. Yet, amidst the turmoil, the ship's band makes a remarkable decision: to keep playing. Number 6. The Titanic Band. All 8 members of the orchestra bravely continue to serenade the doomed vessel as it slips into the ocean's depths. Their dedication to their music is truly extraordinary, For over 2 hours after the ship hits the iceberg, these courageous musicians continue to play, trying to calm the terrified passengers. Their selfless act of playing on despite the imminent danger is legendary. But the story doesn't stop there. One band member, Roger Bricoux, the Titanic's cellist, remained a mystery for decades. Despite perishing in the sinking, he wasn't officially declared dead until 2000. The French army even labeled him a deserter during World War I when he failed to report for duty. It took a staggering 88 years for the French Association of the Titanic to clear his name and honor his memory. Director James Cameron immortalized this touching story in his 1997 film Titanic, ensuring that the world would never forget the unwavering spirit of these musical heroes. So, the next time you hear about the Titanic, remember the brave souls who chose to play on in the face of tragedy. Their music may have been silenced by the depths of the ocean, but their courageous melody will forever resonate in history. Number 7. The Imposter Funnel. The famous Titanic, known for its 4 smokestacks, had a sneaky secret. One of those stacks was just for show. While the ship's silhouette boasted 4 majestic smokestacks, only 3 of them were functional. The 4th one was purely ornamental, added to make the ship appear more impressive. Even James Cameron, in his epic film Titanic, depicted all 4 smokestacks billowing smoke, falling for the same illusion. But why would the Titanic's designers play such a trick? In the early 1900s, these smokestacks were more than just ventilation for furnace smoke. They were symbols of the ship's speed and safety. The White Star Line wanted the Titanic to look powerful and grand from every angle, so they added a 4th funnel, a fake one, to enhance its appearance. This story of audacity and cleverness left the world amazed at the Titanic's deception. The ship, with its imposter funnel standing tall, fooled not only its passengers, but also the entire world. One interesting fact is that, although the Carpathia ultimately rescued the Titanic's survivors, there was a closer ship that could have potentially been the hero of the day. Number 8. The Californian Captain. Meet the Californian Captain Stanley Lord. While resting in an ice field, the Californian tried to do the right thing by warning other ships about the icy conditions. However, the Titanic seemingly ignored their attempts to communicate. Here's the twist. The officers on the Californian saw the Titanic's distress signals but dismissed them as casual communications, not realizing the severity of the situation. Contrary to popular belief, the Titanic wasn't the first to send out distress signals. Wireless communication was new, and there weren't clear rules about monitoring distress calls. When the Titanic called for help, the Californian's wireless operator had already finished his shift, leaving them unaware of the unfolding disaster nearby. Which version of events do you find more convincing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Titanic's lifeboat drill was canceled. As the grandest and most luxurious ship prepared to set sail, a crucial safety measure was missing: lifeboat training. Number 9. The lifeboat drill was canceled. During the ship's cruise, they were supposed to practice getting into lifeboats in case of an emergency. But for some reason, they decided not to do it at the last minute, with no plans to reschedule it during the 4 days at sea. Captain Edward J. Smith, in charge of this floating palace, decided to scrap the lifeboat drill. The crew was so focused on making the ship's interior luxurious that they had little time to prepare for the actual voyage. Unfortunately, April 14, 1912, would be the Titanic's last Sunday at sea, the day of its tragic demise. When disaster struck, there was a shocking 60-minute delay before the first lifeboats were launched. Some passengers thought the alarms were a drill and stayed indoors, while others didn't know where to go since there hadn't been any practice runs. As panic spread, the crew struggled to launch the remaining lifeboats. 2 collapsible lifeboats were not even deployed, leading to a catastrophic event that shook the world. The disaster began before the Titanic sank, as people working on the ship lost their lives before the cruise. Number 10. Construction tragedies of the Titanic. While we're familiar with the Titanic's tragic sinking, its construction was also marked by darkness and despair. Before its maiden voyage, the Titanic had already claimed the lives of 8 workers, with 28 serious accidents during its construction. It's like witnessing a real-life horror story unfold before our eyes. The construction cost was a staggering £1.5 million, with a calculated risk of 1 death for every £100,000 spent. One tragic incident involved James Dobbin, who met his end when he was crushed to death on the day of the Titanic's launch. Can you imagine the horror of witnessing such a scene? Over 10,000 people saw this devastating event unfold. Despite the bravery of those who lost their lives during construction, only 5 names are known. Their sacrifices seem to have been forgotten, lost in the shadows of history. Finally, in 2012, a memorial plaque was unveiled in Belfast to honor all 8 workers who perished during the Titanic's construction. It's a long overdue recognition for these forgotten heroes who deserve to be remembered for their sacrifices. In the Titanic accident, a shift in mindset towards safety could have saved more lives. Number 11. The lifeboat fiasco. We're all aware that there weren't enough lifeboats on the Titanic, but the actual numbers will shock you. With approximately 2,223 passengers on board and a lifeboat capacity of 1,178, one would expect a higher survival rate than the mere 712 souls rescued. So what went wrong? Firstly, the lifeboats were launched at only half capacity. This decision may seem insane, but everyone, passengers and crew alike, believed wholeheartedly that the Titanic was unsinkable. Filling the lifeboats was seen as a precautionary measure. The officers strictly followed the women and children only rule, launching boats that were only half full rather than allowing men to take the empty seats. But why did the Titanic sail with only 20 lifeboats when it needed at least double that number? Here's the scandalous part. There was enough space for 64 boats, but the chief designer planned for just 48. Even with 48 boats, there would have been enough to save everyone if they had been loaded properly. However, someone higher up in the decision-making hierarchy decided that 48 boats would clutter the decks, prioritizing aesthetics over passenger safety. The greedy owners, driven by profit, silenced any opposition to this dangerous decision. If only they had listened. Nearly 700 more lives could have been spared from the icy depths. This serves as a timeless lesson. Never underestimate the importance of preparedness and safety, no matter how unsinkable something may seem. When faced with trouble, one may act or disguise themselves to stay safe. This was the case with Hosono. Number 12. The Japanese survivor. When the Titanic sank, it was well known that the captain should go down with the ship. But what about the passengers? One survivor, Masabumi Hosono, learned the hard way that his survival would bring shame and disgrace. Hosono, the only Japanese person on board, managed to escape with 706 others. Instead of being celebrated, he was scorned and called a coward when he returned home. It was a harsh reception. Why was he treated this way? Rumors suggested that Hosono, like other male passengers, dressed as a woman to get on a lifeboat. While not the most honorable move, desperate times often call for desperate measures. Even the ship's owner, Mr. J. Bruce Ismay, saved himself in a lifeboat and faced disgrace for it. In Japanese culture, honor and duty are highly valued, and poor Hosono was burdened with the shame of being labeled a coward. This stigma persisted even after his death, with his family fighting to clear his name. So what would you have done in Hosono's situation? It's easy to speculate from a distance, but when faced with such a dire situation, none of us can truly know how we would react. Not all heroes wear capes or seek attention. While the ship was sinking, the engineering crew worked tirelessly to keep a glimmer of hope alive. Number 13. Unsung heroes of the Titanic. Amidst the tragic story of the Titanic, there is a group of individuals whose bravery and commitment went unnoticed by many. We're talking about the engineers, the true heroes who kept the ship running even as it faced its demise. While others were rushing for lifeboats and holding onto their belongings, these courageous individuals were deep in the engine room, working tirelessly to keep the ship operational. Joseph Bell and his team of engineers, electricians, boilermakers, and plumbers knew that without the power of the steam engines, the Titanic was vulnerable. As the ship started to break apart, did these engineers abandon their posts? Not at all. They remained steadfast, ensuring that the ship's lights stayed on until the end. Their sacrifice allowed crucial distress signals to be sent out, giving others a chance to survive. Unfortunately, their names are not as well known as some passengers and crew members, but we must remember that they were the ones who truly kept the Titanic afloat for as long as possible. Their unwavering dedication and selflessness in the face of danger should be honored and remembered. The Titanic, once deemed unsinkable, met its tragic end over a century ago and is now facing a new threat: bacteria. Number 14. The new threat. These microscopic organisms are slowly consuming the iconic wreckage at the ocean's bottom. It's surprising to think that something as small as bacteria could bring down such a massive piece of history. Scientists have named this new bacteria Halomonas titanicae. In just a decade, the entire Titanic could disappear, vanishing into the depths of the ocean. The ship, once grand and majestic, may soon be nothing but a distant memory. Estimates suggest that by 2030, there may be no trace of the Titanic left at all. The slow but steady devouring by bacteria is a reminder of the fragility of even the most monumental structures when faced with the relentless forces of nature. A handwritten account detailing the recovery of bodies from a lifeboat after the Titanic's sinking has revealed shocking and chilling details. Number 15. The echoes of tragedy. According to a report found aboard the Oceanic, 3 corpses were recovered, with one wearing a dinner jacket and 2 Titanic firemen tragically wedged under the lifeboat seats. Even more disturbing, one of the corpses had its arm come off during recovery, and a woman's ring was found on the lifeboat, adding to the mystery of the story. Auctioneer Andrew Aldridge described the Titanic as the ship of nightmares, representing the most horrific aspects of the disaster. These unfortunate souls were left behind when survivors from another lifeboat were rescued. Adding to the tragedy, one of the bodies in the dinner jacket was identified as Thompson Beatty, a first-class passenger, and the wedding ring belonged to Elin Gerda Lindell, a Swedish passenger who drowned after briefly reaching a lifeboat. Elin's ring was held by her husband Edward, whose body was never recovered. This tale of love and loss adds another layer of heartbreak to the already tragic narrative. In another remarkable story, a doll's head, the sole survivor of the Titanic, resurfaced 65 years after the sinking. Number 16. The doll head. A doll belonged to Eva Hart, who had to leave it behind as she escaped the sinking ship. Captain Abel Federico Nogueres discovered the doll's head 2,000 meters below the surface of the Atlantic, a poignant reminder of the Titanic's journey. After resting on the ocean floor for 41 years, the doll's head was recovered by Teresa Martin, a collector from Spain. Through an agreement with Eva Hart, Teresa became the caretaker of this artifact, providing closure to Eva, who often spoke of her cherished doll in interviews about her experience on the Titanic. The doll's head had its journey, initially mistaken for a rock by a sailor in 1977. He safeguarded it until his passing, unaware of the historical significance of his discovery. The Titanic movie told a story, but it was inaccurate and left out many important events. The movie's producer made a lot of money by presenting a false narrative. Number 17. Titanic's silver screen saga. The Titanic movie made such massive profits that it could have financed the construction of 11 exact replicas of the ship. That's right, James Cameron's blockbuster hit, released in 1997, earned a mind-blowing $2.2 billion worldwide. With that huge amount of money, Cameron could have brought back the Titanic not once, not twice, but a whole fleet of 11 ships. Despite its immense success, not everyone hailed Cameron's film as a masterpiece. Joe Rogan took a swipe at the filmmaker, pointing out its inaccuracies and even mentioning that some viewers left the theater feeling depressed about their own lives. Surprisingly, a movie could have such an impact on its audience's emotions. But the Titanic story didn't start with Cameron's movie. A Night to Remember, released in 1958, was one of the earlier films to depict the tragedy. What's even more remarkable is that the lead actress, Dorothy Gibson, was an actual survivor of the Titanic. She even wore the same clothes she had on that fateful night: a white evening gown, a long sweater, black shoes, and gloves. Unfortunately, the film met its tragic end when a fire destroyed all prints and copies in 1914. It's as if the Titanic's story continued to be plagued by dramatic events, even on the silver screen. Prepare to be amazed by a lesser-known aspect of the Royal Mail ship Titanic's voyage. Number 18. Onboard canine companions. Among the opulence and luxury of the first-class passengers, there were also some special guests: dogs. Yes, you heard that right. 12 lucky dogs were living a life of luxury alongside their owners. From fox terriers to French poodles, French bulldogs, and even John Jacob Astor's Airedale Terrier, named Kitty, these furry friends were pampered and adored. While some of these fortunate dogs managed to find a spot on the lifeboats and were safely transported to New York, one dog's story stands out for its heartbreaking twist. Anne Elizabeth Isham, a woman known for her courage and love for her Great Dane, faced an unimaginable decision. When crew members told her that her beloved dog was too large to join her in a lifeboat, Isham made a heartbreaking choice. She decided to stay behind with her loyal companion, rather than leave him alone. It is said that later, rescuers found the body of a woman embracing a large dog, believed to be Anne Elizabeth Isham and her Great Dane. This act of profound love and loyalty has become one of the most enduring legends of the Titanic disaster. Can you imagine the strength and devotion it took for Isham to make such a selfless decision? These stories remind us of the extraordinary bond between humans and their animal companions, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Number 19. The youngest survivor. Milvina Dean, the last surviving passenger of the Titanic, had a remarkable start to her life. At just 9 weeks old, she found herself in a lifeboat, placed in a canvas mail sack for safety as the ship sank. Her father, a pub owner from London, had hoped to start a new life for the family in Kansas City, Missouri, and they were traveling third class on the Titanic. Tragically, he did not survive the disaster, leaving Milvina, her mother, and her older brother to fend for themselves. Adding to the drama, Milvina was the youngest passenger rescued by the Carpathia, the ship that came to the Titanic's aid. After the Titanic sank, disturbing findings revealed that passengers were treated unequally based on their class, even during the recovery of their bodies from the wrecked ship. Number 20. The betrayal of third-class passengers. Recently discovered documents shed new light on the aftermath of the Titanic disaster. They reveal a disturbing truth. Rescue crews gave priority to recovering the bodies of first- and second-class passengers, while those from third class were callously thrown into the sea. Telegrams exchanged between a recovery ship and the White Star Line exposed this heartbreaking discrimination. While the wealthy were afforded proper burials, many third-class families were left without closure, unaware of their loved ones' fates. This revelation unveils a betrayal of trust that deeply affected the Titanic's passengers and their families. Researchers have unearthed a critical mistake that may have changed the course of history on that fateful night. Number 21. Revealing the Titanic's sad shift. When the chief officer received the iceberg warning, he made a monumental blunder by ordering the helmsman to turn the wheel hard a starboard. Little did he realize, this decision would seal the Titanic's fate. Now, experts speculate that if they had taken no action, the ship might have stood a chance. With collision bulkheads in its bow, the Titanic could have potentially survived a head-on impact. Some even argue that such a collision could have prevented the ship from sinking altogether, or at least slowed down the process, allowing for more lives to be saved. In essence, if they hadn't made that fatal turn, the outcome might have been vastly different. But as they say, we're all prone to mistakes, aren't we? With each discovery, the depth of astonishment and tragedy surrounding this historic event becomes clearer. The world will forever remember the tales of survival, the loss, and the invaluable lessons learned from that unforgettable night. What are your thoughts on the new discoveries regarding the Titanic? Let's get your responses in the comments section, and also stay tuned for more captivating stories by clicking on the next video that catches your eye.